Hi everyone, thank you for coming back to my channel. In this video, I would like to continue to discuss the New World Order and the global elite hidden agenda. Okay, let's get started. Lucci, Trust, Alice Bailey, World, Goodwill, and Lucifer, the false light of the world. 1922 saw the organization's name changed to Lucci Trust, though the advancement of the Luciferian beliefs remained true. Beliefs that, in Blavatsky's words, oppose the materialism of science and every dogmatic theology, especially the Christian, which the chiefs of the society regard as particularly pernicious. Lucci Trust promulgates the work of an ascended master who was working through Alice Bailey for 30 years. The Lucci Trust Publishing Company and their many fronts and organizations worship an externalized hierarchy of ascended masters who carry out the work of a Luciferian master plan for the establishment of a permanent age of Aquarius, ruled by one Sanat Kumara, Lord of the World. Lucci Trust is a powerful institution that enjoys consultative status with the United Nations, which permits it to have a close working relationship with the UN, including a seat on the weekly sessions. But most importantly, influence with powerful business and national leaders throughout the world. Through its founding of World Goodwill, Lucci Trust is aggressively involved in promoting a globalist ideology. Authors and participants in these various conferences read like a who's who of globalist insiders. Featured on its website, for example, is the Universal Declaration of Human Responsibilities put forth in April 1998 as a companion document to the notorious UN Universal Declaration on Human Rights. Signatories to the World Goodwill document include Helmut Schmidt, former Chancellor of West Germany; Malcolm Fraser, former Australian Prime Minister; Oscar Arias Sanchez, former Prime Minister of Costa Rica; Shimon Peres, Robert McNamara, Paul Volcker, and Jimmy Carter. It is as much a political organization as an occult religious one. Lucci Trust is run through an international board of trustees whose membership is said to have included John D. Rockefeller, Norman Cousins, Robert McNamara, Thomas Watson Jr., Henry Clausen, Grand Commander of the Supreme Council 33 Degree Southern District Scottish Rite, and Henry Kissinger. This would then tie Bailey's influential occult organization into the international conspiracy of elitists, including the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, the Bilderbergs, and the Trilateral Commission. I've been able to confirm some of these connections through Lucci Trust's involvement in the Windsor International Bank and Trust Company, where on its site, the Windsor Bank plainly states that it's a member of, advisor to, affiliate of, friend of, benefactor of, or contributor to the following organizations, to name several. So here's the list of organizations. Important development. After I posted this discovery, the Windsor Bank promptly changed the page and deleted all traces of the connections which I exposed above. As of this writing, they no longer have a web presence. I've been able to salvage a copy, thanks to Google's cache of the page as it appeared when I wrote this. Lucci Trust exposed. One disturbing aspect is the blatant targeting of children. Lucci Trust directs an activity called Triangles in Education, which is partnered with groups that make some contribution to the task of laying the foundations for the new education. This, according to Blakely, is part of the overall work of the new group of world servers, a band of obedient workers and servants of the word. The word being the teachings of her channeled master through her voluminous occult works. The word has also been hid by the likes of Robert Mueller, former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations and winner of the UNESCO Prize for Peace Education in 1989 for his World Core curriculum. He said, the underlying philosophy upon which the Robert Mueller School is based will be found in the teaching set forth in the book of Alice A. Bailey by the Tibetan teacher, The Overshadowing. Alice Bailey was born on June 16, 1880, in the city of Manchester, England. She was raised in an Orthodox Christian family, which she would say later made her very unhappy and a bad-tempered little girl. Life was not worth living, she said, and the feeling of worthlessness and a certain amount of curiosity about life and death led her to attempt suicide 3 times before she was even 15. At the age of 15, her first mystical encounter occurred while her family had gone to church. While she was in a room reading, a man wearing a turban on his head suddenly entered her room. Startled and not being able to say a word, an obvious out-of-place character in 19th century Manchester, this stranger spoke to her. He told me there was some work that it was planned that I could do in the world, but that it would be entail changing my disposition considerably. I would have to give up being such an unpleasant little girl and must try to get some measure of self-control. My future usefulness to him and to the world was dependent on how I handled myself and the changes I could manage to make. He said that if I could achieve real self-control, I could then be trusted and that I would travel all over the world and visit many countries, doing your master's work all the time. He added that he would be in touch with me at intervals of 7 years apart. This was to be Alice Bailey's first contact with her master. These contacts with secret chiefs, familiar spirits, angels, and ascended masters is a common theme in the annals of history and has been the origin of many religious, prophetic, occult movements throughout the centuries. Zoroaster, Muhammad, John Dee, Francis Bacon, Aleister Crowley, Helena Blavatsky, Joseph Smith, Edgar Cayce, and Benjamin Crane immediately come to mind. 1917. After the breakup of her first marriage, she moved to the United States, where she was introduced to the teachings of theosophy. It was during this period that she had met and married her husband Foster Bailey, 33-degree Scottish Rite Freemason. She turned out to be a good pupil. Bailey soon rose through the ranks and became the editor of the American Theosophist newspaper. For the last 125 years, New Age leaders worldwide have followed the false light of theosophy. They now whisper sweet lies into the itching ears of the powerful politicians, media moguls, UN officials, foundation grantmakers, and Anglican bishops as the West moves into a post-Christian era. In the influence of the New Age movement grows. The encounter with her fated second master and soon-to-be writing partner for an international esoteric movement occurred in 1919. While having a quiet time on a hill close to her house, she heard a note of music sounding everywhere, which was followed by a voice that asked her if she was willing to write some books. Having refused, saying that she wouldn't engage in any psychic practices, the voice gave her 3 weeks to reconsider. Alice completely forgot about the subject when the voice made its appearance as scheduled. Agreeing to give it a try for a few weeks, the first chapters of Initiation, Human and Solar were written. After about a month, Alice got scared. Refusing to do any more work, the master told her to discuss it with her master Kuhumi. Kuhumi confessed that it was in fact him that told DK to contact her, and he gave Alice permission to proceed. After giving Mrs. Bailey the proper technique for enhanced telepathic communication, between 1919 and 1949, she produced 24 books, including an autobiography. 19 of these books were supposedly written by her Tibetan master DK. During the intervening year, Alice Bailey spent most of it working out what she referred to as the plan, the results of which influenced the birth of many New Age groups, the Church Universal and Triumphant, Benjamin Crimm's The Terra Center, the Robert Mueller Schools, and the Temple of Understanding, to name a few. I think the Temple of Understanding is inside the United Nations, headquartered United Nations in the United States, in downtown New York. The Networks of Lights Trust, 50 years at the United Nations Plaza, currently located on Wall Street in New York. Trust provides worldwide financial support for the Arcane School, World Goodwill, Triangles, Publishing, Productions, Trust Libraries, and the new group of world servers maintains the UN Meditation Room. The Arcane School, founded in 1923, the school gives correspondence courses in meditation and the occult from its branches in New York, Geneva, London, and Buenos Aires. World Goodwill, founded in 1932, the organization is recognized by the United Nations today as an NGO. World Goodwill works directly with the World Federalists and is part of the work to externalize the hierarchy of illuminated minds, which will usher in an age of matriarch. Triangles, founded in 1937. Triangles is the name of a global network of cells whose members pray a great invocation, especially on the full moon, when members of Triangle can be influenced by the astrological signs of zodiac. We haven't even scratched the surface yet on the influence of Bailey and her master's teaching. Let's look at a comparison by two writers who talk about Trust, World Goodwill, which, when compared, illustrate both sides of the agenda: the manipulation of politics towards a new world order, and the manipulation through occult means to manifest the plan of the hierarchy. So you can read through this yourself. In considering the above information, one can't help but wonder whether these organizations, which are aligned with Trust, believe in the plan, as World Goodwill put it, to initiate action to prepare for the New World Order. I believe that they do, and it is my intention to prove that conviction throughout this site, and especially that it is a spiritual plan, a plan that, if given a thorough valuation from their own writings can be seen as nothing less than Satan's attempt to implement a totalitarian demonic throne upon the earth and humanity's forced worship through Luciferic rites. For when the Great One appears, he will take the mysterious religion preserved by Freemasonry and make them public. Luci Trust has truly become a powerhouse for the New Age ideal. The transformation of society by and through occult initiatory means the respect that Bailey's teachings receive and the reverence for her master is without equal. She has successfully pulled the wool over the eyes of many concerning the true meaning and source of her teachings. What exactly is the teaching and message delivered by her master? This will be the subject examined in part 2. The secret doctrine. In the occult, Satan or Lucifer has traditionally been associated with the sun and the harbinger of spiritual light. Esoteric philosophy teaches that it is this great being, not the God of the Old Testament, that was the true Redeemer and benefactor of mankind in the Garden of Eden. There's a few works in the occult that have stood the test of time and have become Bibles in their own right. These are revered and studied by all seekers on the path. Some claim to be revealing great esoteric knowledge passed down through sects and orders long forgotten. Other works claim to be channeled from secret chiefs or ascended masters. I offer these quotes from Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine in order to show the typical reversal philosophy espoused. Blavatsky philosophy also served to illustrate where Bailey first encountered her heretical views in the first place, as we will see in part 2. Blavatsky taught her pupil well. Their spiritual philosophies are virtually identical. So you can pause and read through this yourself. One has to keep in mind where this heresy originated. Blavatsky claimed to have received it from disembodied spirits called secret chief. These interdimensional or demonic beings seem to be appealing directly to the intellect. Our intelligence, after all, is a thing of great pride, isn't it? And where would we be had it not been for the benefactor, the serpent of old? Then the obvious conclusion would have Jehovah being the adversary. This twisted sensibility is very appealing to those who practice the occult. It also shows that in the end, when all the cards are laid on the table, it's always about that one selfish being already condemned and hell-bent on bringing mankind with him. Alice Bailey and Master Joa call a satanic communion. Preparation too must be given to the developing of higher psychic powers. Hospitals and schools will appear under the direct guidance of the masters. Teachers will train the minds of the pupils to be responsive to direct inspiration from above. As we have seen earlier, Luci Trust is today intimately connected with elite politics through its world goodwill. We haven't yet, however, examined the occult teachings of Bailey as they were related by her master Iwaku. Her 24 books, combined with Beacon Magazine, Triangle, and the Arcane School in Doctrine, students into what Bailey describes as the as the Ageless Wisdom Teachings. The Arcade School, founded in 1922, boosted 20,000 graduates by 1954. This occult university is more active than ever and continues to be the main training ground for the New Age disciples. The bulk of these occult teachings in Bailey's book are from her channeled Tibetan master, DK. The plan according to the hierarchy of ascended masters. Through a series of group initiations and group meditative techniques, the hierarchy directs the new group of world servers to implement a new world religion, of which humanity as a whole can aid the will of the planetary logos. Emphasis should be laid on the evolution of humanity, so says Master DK through Bailey, with particular attention to its goal, perfection. One way to materialize the hierarchy's plan for humanity is through Nutri-Trust triangle networks. The goal is the practice of occult meditation, the science of energy flow and energy relationships. Nutri-Trust states that occult meditation is a means of consciously and purposefully directing energy from a recognized source to the creation of some specific effect. International participants sit quietly for a few minutes and link mentally with other members of their triangle or triangles. They invoke the energies of light and goodwill, visualizing these energies as circulating through the three focal points of each triangle and pouring through the networks of triangles surrounding the planet. At the same time, they repeat the great invocation. Her 30-year telepathic connection to Master DK was what some would unhesitantly call demonic possession. Her husband Foster Bailey said, during the long course of the work, the minds of the Tibetan and AAB became so closely attuned that they were in effect, so far as much of the production of the teaching was concerned, a joint single projecting mechanism. The technique is called in the occult the overshadowing, a euphemism for demonic possession, or as Bailey liked to call it, the science of impression. Hierarchy has overshadowed many in the intervening years up to the close of the century. The growing modern practice of channeling and psychic astral projection bears out this prediction of a half-century ago. These methods of overshadowing will largely be the ones used by the Great Law and his masters at the end of century, and for this reason, they are sending into incarnation in every country disciples who have the opportunity offered them to respond to the need of training men and women to recognize the higher psychism and the true inspiration and mediumship, and to do this scientifically. In 50 years' time, the need for true psychics and conscious mediums will be very great if the master's plan are to be carried through to fruition, and the movement must be set on foot in preparation for the coming of him for whom all nations wait, which is the Antichrist. 10 seed groups. Early on, Master DK informed Bailey of the hierarchy's plan for the 10 seed groups. These seed groups were to infiltrate all sectors of society and be esoterically anchored with new approaches to divinity. I have no doubt that today's New Age movement is the result of the hierarchy's scattering of the seed, as Bailey put it, and that today's arguably open pagan society can largely be traced to this occult plan. The 10 seed groups were embryonic, like germinating seed. Through their occult practices, these 10 groups would work directly under inspiration from the hierarchy via the focused minds of the group. From Alice Bailey's discipleship in the New Age Volume 1, page 35 to 40, the 10 seed groups consist of and carry out their mission in following ways. Number 1. Telepathic communicators. Summary of work. Telepathic communication from soul to soul through, from mind to mind through, integration between humanity and hierarchy, through science of impression, which is demonic possession. Number 2, trained observers. Summary of work. Dissipation of world glamour, illusion, and Maya through illumination. That is all bullshit, huh? Number 3, magnetic healers. Summary of work through magnetic living, through laws of life, laws of health and right human relationships, through continuity of consciousness. Number 4, educators in the New Age. Summary of work. Education through inflow of the light of knowledge into instinctual man, through inflow of the light of the wisdom into intelligent man, through applied knowledge, expressed wisdom, and occult understanding in spiritual man. Political organizers. Summary of work. International understanding through communication of the divine political will into races and nations. Linking the department of Manu with man, the ruler of the human race. Number 6, workers in the field of religion. Summary of work through transcendental mysticism, through transcendental occultism, through transcendental religion. Number 7, scientific servers. Summary of work through development of new hypotheses to substantiate the next step forward, through sensitive reaction to spiritual energies and forces, through release of energy to relate spirit and matter and precipitate the divine plan. Number 8, psychologists. Summary of work through relationship of the human kingdom to the subhuman and the superhuman kingdom, through a study of divine plan for the 5 kingdoms of nature. Number 9, financiers and economists. Summary of work through a study of the nature of prana or etheric energy, through study of deflection of this form of concretized energy into constructive channels and rays of light, through study of the law of supply and demand. Number 10, creative workers. Summary of work through linking life and form, through philosophical relationship of synthesis and the plan. Truly an occult conspiracy of the highest kind, and wearisome at the very least for anyone, both Christian and non-believers alike. When you factor in what I've shown in part 1, Lucci trust influence over international elite politics, it's a downright chilling. The most revealing part of these seed groups is the fact that the political organizers link the department of the Manu, the ruler of the human race, with men. The Bible already tells us that the ruler of the human race is Satan. Then it follows that the department of Manu must be but another name for the deceiver. This is indeed the case. In Frontier Science, Social Change, Paul von Ward relates Hermetic principles comprise part of a body of knowledge allegedly given to humans by an advanced being more than 5,000 years ago. He has been known by various names, including Thoth or Seth in Egypt, Manu in India, Hermes in Greece, and Lucifer or Satan in Judeo-Christian tradition. That is indeed the case, and the actual words used are giving a totally opposite meaning when examined under the light of biblical scripture and compared point for point with Bailey's writing. See PhD Robert Herman's web page, A Modern Manifestation of Absolute Evil, for his paper called A Scientific Analysis of the Writings of Alice Bailey and Their Applications for a Treatment in DK's Deception. For instance, light, Luciferian enlightenment, God, Satan, stream forth, overshadow, love, various forms of scriptural define evil or generate hatred, Christ, Antichrist, little wills of man, the claimed unintelligent, weak, and inferior desires of individuals, especially those that follow conservative Judeo-Christian doctrine. Purpose to prepare for the appearance of the Antichrist, masters, demons, or demon-controlled individuals, race of man, humanity as ruled by Lucifer. Plan, complete domination in preparation for and after the appearance of the Antichrist, which is the New World Order, the beast system, and they put the guidelines on the Georgia guidestones. Seal the door where evil dwells, violence if necessary, eradication of those that follow Judaism, conservative Christianity, some liberal Christianity, and other similar orthodox religions. Power, often hideous and actual destructive forces. In Hindu occult practice, the main root of the New Age movement, there are 7 major centers of Kundalini energy by occult methods using meditation, drugs, visualization, yoga, and whatever means necessary. Initiates seek to awaken the sleep fiery serpent for a higher state of consciousness. This Kundalini energy is visualized as an entwined serpent which rises from the base of the spine to enlighten and eventually dissolve the ego to become a god incarnate, thereby preventing further incarnation on the physical plane. The New Age disciples believe in reincarnation and taught by the demonic hierarchy that this is the only way to stop the endless cycle of karma, to evolve into gods. That is the goal, and the techniques vary, but as one ascends through the 7 progressive chakras, each is an initiation into a higher consciousness, until finally, when you reach the point of union with Sanatkamara, Shiva, Vishnu, Lord of the world, or what they most blasphemously call the Christ consciousness. Satan's deception is that through each successive chakra, the occult initiate actually thus perceive a shift in consciousness, which to him it seems it's a progressive shift. The occultist now feels his contact and psychic telepathy and with the hierarchy getting stronger. As he continues, the initiate invariably reaches a point of no return. There is no turning back, and all those doubts he failed to hit, being the right path or not, are finally revealed to him. It's too late. They are his. This is called Luciferic initiation. These feelings, voiced by so many who have received a Luciferic initiation, are significant. They point to 2 inescapable facts. The initiate recognizes that he is coming into close contact with dark, evil forces, and a spirit of fear engulfs him. And 2. After the initiation, his mind is patently altered. This is what New Agers call the Kundalini Scatterpack experience, technically termed a paradigm shift. Bailey's planetary logos. For the Greeks, the logos was the divine pattern found in humans, the plural of logic. The Hebrews had a similar view, which they call Deva, The bell was also a representation of a divine pattern, and they thought that it could only be found in certain things. An example would be Moses receiving the word logos from God through the Ten Commandments. I know they worship Moses because of the Ten Commandments. They like to create their own laws, so they worship Moses. It was known as the means through which man can receive the wisdom of God. The Apostle John was aware of this concept, and he used it to appeal to both the Greeks and the Hebrews of his time. In the beginning was the Word, Logos, and the Word, Logos, was with God, and the Word, Logos, was made flesh and dwelt among us. John 1:14. It was a particularly forceful way of teaching the divinity of Jesus as the Logos. Consequently, this plural aspect in the Logos was to be a defining factor for the church teaching of the Trinity. Jesus has always been the Logos. So when Bailey's teacher and mentor H.P. Blavatsky wrote, actually the serpent was the Lord God himself, who, as the office, the Logos, or the bearer of divine creative wisdom, taught mankind to become creators in their turn. Christians must have been horrified. Bailey's own planetary logos carries on in the Luciferic tradition. She didn't call her organization Lucifer Trust for nothing. And so it is Alice Bailey's Trinity. Notice that Lucifer is the ruler of humanity. He's also identified with something called the planetary throat center. This is a clue that she is talking about chakras. Lucifer, or rather Luciferic energy, is released when the fifth chakra throat is awakened. Notice how Satan Komara is also identified with the spiritual pineal gland and planetary head center. This would correspond to seventh chakra. Chakras are also called energy centers, so Bailey's planetary centers fits within the chakra teaching, and Bailey calls her logos logoic kundalini. What's more, each chakra is a logos unto itself. Bailey says that the planetary logos is called the first Kamara, the one initiator, and he came to this planet from Venus. An allusion to Lucifer and his traditional association with Venus, son of the morning. Elsewhere, she writes that the goal for the planetary logos is God consciousness, and that the illuminating light of the fifth logos, Lucifer, fifth throat chakra, is felt at the third initiation. 4. And she makes another statement that the Venus scheme was signalized by the Venusian planetary logos on his fifth chakra. According to Hindu tradition, each chakra center also has its associated color. If you look at the drawing at the top right, you can see that the fifth Lucifer is given the color blue. The temple on Epstein's Island is blue, white, and gold. So blue is representing Lucifer. Below it is a representation of the throat chakra bathed in its characteristic blue light. Look familiar? It should. The Reader's Digest full page, and I've shown above also, has a blue glow. In part 1, I displayed the Nucci Trust logo, and it too features this streaming blue light, the New Age symbol invented by Foster Bailey. has a plethora of symbolic imagery, is set in a limitless field of blue, which signifies the sphere of life expression of our solar logos. Superimposed upon the triangle of New Age forces is the five-pointed star of Antichrist, a five-pointed star which is the pentagram. The star is blue because it represents as much of the solar quality to which humanity can respond. You can see this symbol on the front cover of Lucitrus Beacon magazine, which also displays the blue light of the logos. That's why Lucifer, Freemasonry, the flag is blue. In illustration, human and solar, Bailey mentions the five-pointed star as the final two initiations, and it descends upon him, merges in him, and he is seen at its center. The five-pointed star blazes forth, and he enters within the flame. A perfect description of the Luciferic initiation, if there ever was one. This, she says, puts a man in touch with the center in the body of the planetary logos. What made me realize the significance of Bailey's blue symbology was a short snippet, almost written in passing, in an email sent to a list that I'm on. Blue is Masonic Blue Lodge, for blue light eyes of Horus, the Watcher. The United Nations has blue flags and helmets. Blue is for the occultic blue lips of death. The New World Order must meet the immediately and not be an attempt to satisfy some distant idealistic vision. The New World Order must be appropriate to a world which has passed through a destructive crisis and to a humanity which is badly shattered by experience, which is now we are experiencing. They have all the false flags events. The New World Order must lay the foundation for a future world order, which will be possible only after a time of recovery, of reconstruction, and rebuilding. They like the phoenix rising. In the preparatory period for the New World Order, there will be a steady and regulated disarmament. It will not be optional. No nation will be permitted to produce and organize any equipment for destructive purposes or to infringe the security of any other nation. The New World Order must be appropriate to a world which has passed through a destructive crisis. We are concerned with only one subject, the ushering in of the New World Order. So that's why they try to start the World War III. The present world order can be so modified and changed that a new world and a new race of men can gradually come into being. Renunciation and the use of the sacrificial will should be the keynote for the interim period after the war, World War II, prior to the inauguration of the New Age. Professors and politicians gather to warn us about the New World Order. We are dealing with a criminal undertaking at a global level, and there is an ongoing war. It is led by the United States, which is the deep state. Actually, it's not only United States. The deep state is global, so it may be carried out by a number of proxy countries, which are obeying orders from Washington. Actually, it's obeying order from Vatican and UK. The global war on terrorism is a US undertaking, which is fake. It's based on fake premises. It tells us that somehow America and the Western world are going after a fictitious enemy, the Islamic State, when in fact the Islamic State is fully supported and financed by the Western military alliance and America's alliance in the Persian Gulf, which is because the deep state For example, the past few presidents, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and George Bush, and then Obama. They say Muslims are terrorists, but it just so happens that terrorists are made in USA. They are not the product of Muslim society, and that should be abundantly clear to everyone on this floor. The global war on terrorism is a fabrication, a big lie, and a crime against humanity. The quote above comes from prominent author and Canadian economist Dr. Michel Trasudowski, which is the University of Ottawa Emeritus Professor of Economics, spoken at the International Conference on the New World Order, which was organized and sponsored by Perdana Global Peace Foundation. I'm not sure if he's still alive, if he openly declared it. What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. George Bush Sr. I think this Obama's task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period, when really a new world order can be created. Henry Kissinger. The conference featured numerous speakers, such as Dr. Thomas Burnett, an American military geostrategist and chief analyst at Wikistrat. He has also held numerous insider positions, one of them being advisor to former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. President of the International Movement for a Just World, Dr. Chandra Musafa, and former editor of the Japan Times, Yoichi Sumatsu, were also in attendance, and the event was headed by Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, who was the fourth Prime Minister of Malaysia and is currently the president of Perdana Global Peace Foundation. It's great to see a number of academics and professionals come together to create awareness about what seems to be a global military agenda toward a massive surveillance state and a new world order, more specifically, a one world government. The New World Order. Prior to credible people coming forward in an attempt to create awareness about the New World Order agenda, it was considered a conspiracy by most. It's quite disturbing that a conference like this does not receive any mainstream media attention, and it's even more disturbing that it would need to be aired on mainstream television in order to be taken seriously by the masses. The grip that corporate media has on the minds of the masses is strong, and it does a great job at keeping the world ignorant and oblivious to events and concerns being raised by many experts in various fields from all over the world. The New World Order is the supposed goal of a handful of global elitists who are pushing for a one world government and a heightened national security state. In order to accomplish this goal, this group uses false flag terrorism and the fear of global threats to impose increased security measures on domestic populations to justify the invasion of other countries. False flag terrorism is run by covert operations designated to deceive and manipulate in such a way as to appear as though they had been carried out by groups, nations, or entities other than those who actually planned it and executed them. So, refer back to my previous video. I mentioned that no one country is exactly free from the Luciferian control. It's not because one country is ultimate ultimate bad guy. It's just because the deep state they've been controlling on the backstage, and they appointed some countries as bad guys and some countries as good guys, so that we will fight against each other, you know, among race, ethnicities, and then now is among genders, male and female. So that's what they do. They want to divide us, and they want us to fighting against each other, spending time arguing with each other, instead of sit down and stay calm and analyze the situation and figure out they are ultimate the the enemy of ours, not us between each other. All three buildings were destroyed by carefully planned, orchestrated and executed controlled demolition. Professor Lynn Margulis, Department of Geosciences, University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and National Academy of Science member, one of the many academics who has been very outspoken regarding 911. I hope he's still alive. The truth is, there is no Islamic army or terrorist group called Al Qaeda, and any informed intelligence officer knows this. But there is a propaganda campaign to make the public believe in the presence of an intensified entity representing the devil, only in order to drive TV watchers to accept a unified international leadership for a war against terrorism. The country behind this propaganda is the United States. So, think about it. All these years, how many years been? Russia, China, North Korea are the bad guys, then the rest of the world are the good guys. And then now, all of a sudden, US is the bad guy because President Trump is in charge. And as I explained in my previous video, history repeating itself. What they did to China, to Ireland, they divide the people north and south, they don't get along. Just for examples, like now in the US, people divided into two groups, all orchestrated by the deep state globalists. This group has been using foreign threats to heighten security, take away our rights, and invade our countries. Virtually the entire world is now covered with United States military bases, with the exception of Russia and a few other countries. Now it's different. They cover with UN military. Okay? Secretly. Nobody knows. Okay? And we've been warned about this before. Eisenhower warned us to guard against the rise of misplaced power and acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. President Sukarno and Kennedy were working on releasing the global collateral accounts for humanitarian purposes, which saw the former put under house arrest for the rest of his life, and the latter assassinated. President Kennedy warned us about a group that thrives off of the potential of an increased need for security and how it would be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment, which is what they've been doing to the United States. All the shooting for the past few days, they want gun control. They want us to be armless. They want to confiscate our arms. But fortunately, President Trump today announced that he didn't even mention that. He just mentioned like education, helping the people that have mental problems, etc. and to reinstate the capital punishment for whoever kill people, in a mass shooting. So that's what it is. Al-Qaeda and the Al-Qaeda affiliated organizations, including the Islamic State, are not independent organizations. They are sponsored, and they are sponsored by the United States and its allies, they are sponsored by the global deep state, global elites. It is documented that prior to year 2011, there was a process of recruitment of mujahideen to fight in Syria, and this was coordinated by NATO and the Turkish High Command. Okay, so UN and NATO are the bad guys, and of course the Red Cross, UNICEF, etc. This report is confirmed by Israeli news sources and unequivocally, we are dealing with a state sponsorship of terrorism, the recruitment of mercenaries, the training and the financing of terrorism. Are we seeing the same thing with ISIS? It seems the path towards a new world order isn't really possible without a constant threat of war and terrorism. A power has risen up in the government greater than the people themselves, consisting of many and various and powerful interests combined into one mass and held together by the cohesive power of the vast surplus in the banks, which is the central banks and the bankers. They all in for that. New World Order also deals with legislation that we never really heard about. For example, Dr. Mohammed made the accusation that the Trans-Pacific Partnership was strategically aimed at dominating the world economy and marks another step closer to the global dominance of those who orchestrated it. Think about it for a moment. If there is a group of people using various governments to force their will upon the world, heighten the national security state by means of manufactured false flag threats, and more, what are we dealing with there? What are we dealing with here? If the same people who are portrayed as patriotic, men and women defending their land and fighting for their country, are actually pursuing terrorists that were created and funded by their own government, what is really going on here? And why do many politicians, academicians, and professionals spend their time trying to notify the world without a peep from mainstream media? I hope you guys like this video, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.